cost of capital is zero. Okay. That's yesterday's news. That's Friday's news. Monday rolls around. The market's going to say to you, what are you going to do for me today? So, my point with all of this is it doesn't matter, okay, that Apple's cost of capital is negative because the market is forward looking and they're going to look at Apple and say, okay, um, your revenues were X, your profitability, your net margins were Y, and you brought home X. Okay. What is that going to look like in the coming quarters? And so if once the market senses that there's an adjustment to revenues, margins, and you start getting margin compression because of inputs. And so here's a perfect example why the inputs are so important. Do you guys really believe that Foxconn in China is not impacted? Does anyone know what the hell goes into an iPhone? And if you look at Apple's earnings, and again,
What's the impact?
the impact is very inflationary because all of the inputs to production, from the glass to the all of the key components of an iPhone. So the long and simple of it is someone's going to have to eat the cost. Is it going to be Apple or is it going to be the consumer? That's why they're telling you. Most of the analysts who have self-respected analysts who are actually good will tell you invest in companies that have the power of price. Why? Because you've got inflationary environment. So the market is going to say to you, Apple, Mr. Tim Apple, are you going to be able to drive a year over year, quarter on quarter growth, both in margin, top line, and bottom line? And the moment that that falls off,
So
even slightly,
teach
the
people
stock
how the
drops.
fact that an
No, it's,
iPhone is made of pieces, right? To what you're
I,
saying,
I
and
absolutely,
invest in those companies that make that phone.
I absolutely agree with Abe on the point because input costs, for example, um,
But Abe, teach people to understand what you're talking about.
well,
And give
I'll,
them
I'll,
the,
I'll,
give them the guide.
I'll just give you like a offhanded example. If you wanted every car to be an EV, it would require more lithium than would be available to all cell phones. So there's a production problem there and a supply problem there.
And 5 years ago, you would invest in FMC, which was one of the largest holders of lithium, but has actually spun that off. Did you know that?
It doesn't really matter because if
My
if it's
point,
a
my
it,
point to Abe was to give him like just a moment to say, "Hey guys, if you guys want to learn how to invest and find things that you can make more money on, be the parts that make the whole."
Well, I would.
Essentially looking at the raw materials and the companies that actually produce the raw materials that make, and you're just kind of like literally breaking it down to a not a macro but a micro perspective.
I'm just trying to break things down so that people understand what the hell goes into these earnings.
No, no, I'm definitely agreeing
Yeah.
with that aspect. I'm just kind of highlighting that I think Abe is just essentially, kind of in a layman's term, breaking it down to, hey, let's look at the companies that are producing the raw materials that these companies rely on. So a la, I want to say for the majority, or I got to kind of look at the listeners in the space, but you're going to have to also take into aspect the listeners in this space. So I know we're getting very 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 macro, but like the LACs, I think they're looking for kind of just like guidance in the overall general market. I think we're kind of getting in a very macro perspective, but just wanted to chime that in.
So
Go ahead.
so I
No,
think
continue on, Abe.
I think the point is that look, let's marry the macro with the micro because otherwise it becomes too easy to just talk about the macro and then you get clobbered because we've ignored everything else. What I'm trying to say is this: if you buy the inflation story, if you buy it, okay, some people don't buy it, all right, for some reason, I don't know how, but they don't. If you buy the sustained inflation story, That's going to mean that you're going to be impacted in every which way. Your labor is going to go up, cost of all your inputs are going to go up, everything goes up. Okay. Then you have to say to yourself,
How
then
long
you got
do
to
you
say,
think? How long do you think
I don't
inflation is
know.
going to go on?
I don't know. I don't know. If I knew that, guys, I'd be tanning my ass in the Bahamas right now.
Hey,
Both
yo,
of
that's
us.
what I'm talking about.
Okay. Look, the reality is no one
No, I'm
can
just
tell you that.
curious. I mean, just
No,
your gut.
my gut is that first of all, I never believed that inflation was transitory. Never ever believed that nonsense that came out of the Fed and
Do you
everywhere
think
else.
it's political? And in fact, if they take the House in 2022, that might change things. And then
I don't think
2024,
that it. I don't think it will matter. I don't think it will matter. I'll tell you why I don't think it matters who the hell is in power anymore.
let
Uh,
explain that, please. Thank you.
I don't think it matters because you're welcome. Because inflation it isn't just a homegrown problem. It's not just a U.S. homegrown problem. That's why I say to people, you need to be very worldly and understand what the hell is happening everywhere. Inflation is rampant. It's everywhere. We just didn't get we didn't get the worst part of it being in North America for many reasons. Okay, but the rest of the world is getting the crap beat out of them, especially Europe. And they, by the way, are the largest economy in the world. Okay, it's not the US, it's not China, it's the European Union. That's a fact. So they're getting clobbered. So you ask me whether or not how long, my late father used to say, son, I used to ask him something. He'd say, how long is a piece of string? The reality is, I don't know. What I will tell you is that some of the inputs to inflation, I'll give you an example. The Biden administration, and I only use I'm not trying to get political, but it was their administration recently, just increased federal workers to the tune of 6%. Okay, you can't have regressive incomes moving into next year once they have been, crystallized. So you've got 6% increases going on. I can tell you in Canada, and the same thing's going in the States. You can't hold on to labor because labor costs are literally ripping. They are
Wages
ripping.
are going up.
Exactly. So my point to you is